Hello, welcome guys. So today we are going to talk about another very important tool and methodology in your part of in your way to become a web developer, a good web developer, which is using the MVC framework or Model View Controller framework. Now let's get some basic concepts in case you are not familiar with this. So model view controller is a type of framework, you can say it's an approach to developing web applications. Something like, let's say, in object-oriented programming versus procedural programming. On the similar lines, you can use MVC approach or non-MVC approach. So what is an MVC approach? So let's get some basic ideas about that, couple of minutes, and then we will download one of the MVC framework which I particularly like. There are a lot of them, and a lot of them are free, like Cake framework, PHP Cake, Zen framework, but I particularly like CodeIgniter. So part of this tutorial would be give you a couple of minutes of brief overview of MVC framework, then we'll download CodeIgniter and install it, and then I will give you some basics of developing applications using CodeIgniter. This is not a video of detailed explanation of MVC framework or of CodeIgniter. So anyway, so let's get the basic MVC framework concepts. So MVC framework is let's write model view and controller. Now, as you know, a typical web application, you have, let's say, a browser, right, which will show some HTML. Oops, I have some. Anyway, let's move on. This browser would, here you have your code, right? So you type URL, this code basically spits out HTML, right? So what internally happens is, in your code there are three parts. One is the pure HTML logic, or HTML, the code which renders the page, and then there is a certain, let's say, logic, like say if then else, and then there is something database. So let's take an example. I think then it will be clear. I'm not sure if this is the right way of doing these three boxes, but let's say you have an example where you are displaying an address book. Now there are entries in, let's say there is an address table, right, and it has the address table has, let's say, department and name, employee name and address. Let's say just a simple simple table, and then you're really calling a program here to display the address of all the employees, which department, HR. So in this code there would be two or three main things. One is to query the table and fetch the records of department, and then put them in a nice table format and display it here. So the way smarter way to develop web application is really separate out these three pieces. One is the HTML part, where you're doing table tag and all this. Then so that's in the what you call presentation layer. Okay, I'm going to just write the short form, presentation layer. Then the query part, where you are doing a database query, that's in the model, what we call. And then the glue between this, what we call, is controller. So this controller gets the input from the HTML, let's say a typical URL, a typical URL to display the address for department would be have, let's say, department name equal to HR. That should be a part of the URL. So when it gets that, so then the controller would get that URL, parse it out, see what department, and then call a model which will do the query and then send the results. And then this controller, where the logic sits, it will loop through that, or it will take it and then send the records to the presentation layer, and presentation layer would loop through it and display the records. So that's basically the model view controller approach. Again, there is much more to model view controller, but again, I just want to give you a quick overview. With that, let's just download one of the model view controller framework, which is CodeIgniter, and then we'll have a brief overview of CodeIgniter framework. Again, please look for my future videos on model view controller. I'll cover more in detail, and definitely this is, if you really want to be a good web developer, this is sort of the way to go. You should follow model view controller approach. So now we're going to install one model view framework, which is called CodeIgniter. So CodeIgniter, so click on the URL, and then you should go to CodeIgniter home, and then download CodeIgniter 1.7.2. So it's a good and light framework. So when you download it, now CodeIgniter, it's a framework, meaning it's a set of libraries, meaning a set of files. All you do is that there is no ex involved. You download the zip file, and then you extract it, and then you put it in a location. So that's all pretty much installation. There is no ex involved. It's a set of libraries which you use to develop your application. So once you download zip, you extract it, and then you install it. So how to install it? So let's say in my locations here, I'll show you. So CodeIgniter, once you expand it, it will have a system folder, system and user ID. What you do is that you define your web root and then put the entire system and user guide folder there. So let's say in my particular case, Aspire Academy website, I've defined a folder called AMP, which is my document root, and then I put the entire system folder here. So system folder has a lot of these folders, and the primary folder you'd be interested in, or where you have to write stuff, is under application. So under application, you have, as you see, 3 folders mainly: controller, models, and views. So these are the 3 places you would be writing files. You'll also do some stuff in the config. So let me show you my implementation of CodeIgniter. So once you do this, then what you do is that you start writing programs. So here what you're seeing is I have a simple address book application. So where I've got some excuse me, I've got a little cold here, but I hope my voice is not too bad. But anyway, coming back to the MVC controller. So as you see, I have got some controller here, some models. So this is an address model which does a, let's see what it has. It has a simple query which is get all, which basically does a simple select. And then I have some views. So views, one of the views is list view. Let's see. So views has a lot of presentation layer. So my view file. So here is my view file. As you see, it has a lot of this td tr tag, and it is displaying the records. Again, this is not a detail. This is not a tutorial how to develop using CodeIgniter. I should be producing a lot, CodeIgniter videos. If you're interested in developing applications, CodeIgniter, please look for them later on. And then once you create these files, and then you can, let's see, here is my address for application. As you see, I have got uh, the URL and it is displaying this. So that's sort of a brief overview of CodeIgniter. It's a good light framework and it has a lot of features. Uh, to get started with the CodeIgniter, the main thing you have to do is really go to the config. So let me just tell you a few things about CodeIgniter. Here it has the document root. Let's see. So one of the main parameters is that you put the base URL. So which is in my case is this one. And then there is a database where you put database username, password, and then there are a couple of other ones. So anyway, there is a good documentation if you are looking to develop a CodeIgniter framework. You go to codeigniter.com and then read user guide, and there's a very beautiful documents. Basically, you start with table of contents page, and you go through each of this links. Also, look for my videos if you're interested. But CodeIgniter is definitely a very light and compact framework. The other frameworks which are kind of popular is Zen framework. I particularly do not like some of the frameworks because they come very heavy. CodeIgniter is really a good balance between usefulness and also at the same time being light, but also it's very useful, very compact, and also provides ton of features. With that, thank you. And in the next tutorial, I would probably go with a couple of more on the client side installation, which is Firebug, jQuery, and Blueprint CSS. Thank you.